Okay, hey guys, welcome to the Goodfellow Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Barone. With me today is Louis Kasman. Louis Kasman's been around the block, and so I want him to tell his story. But before I get into that, before I introduce Louis to everybody out there, don't forget to, if you like me, subscribe, hit the thumbs up. Don't forget the Patreon channel. We also got some shirts and stuff on the on and some mugs and stuff like that. And don't forget to ask Joe personal questions or whatever. Anyways, without further ado, Louis, welcome to the show. Tell everybody who you are.
Thank you, Joe. Uh, I'm Louis Kasman, and I was known as John Gotti Sr.'s adopted son and best friend
Wow, that's a pretty
uh,
big title.
for approximately, I guess, since I was 20 years old. Um, he was my kid's godfather to three daughters. Never missed a birthday, never missed a party, never missed a gift till the day he died in jail.
Wow.
He was one hell of a man. He was a man's man.
And I want to talk about John too, but I also want to get a little bit into you. Like, not a lot of people have really heard about you that much back in those days.
Well, it was like I was on the down low at the beginning,
Okay.
and which is how we wanted to work it, and it worked. The FBI didn't know. Many of the wise guys didn't know. The
Nice.
skippers in the Gambino family knew. Those
Right.
captains knew, especially Tommy Gambino, because I was in the garment center and
Carlos' son, right?
yeah, Carlos' son.
Yeah. Mm.
And Tommy was directed by the boss to assist me in any way possible in the garment center, and he reluctantly did, but he did.
Okay.
'Cause he didn't want the boss's wrath, and so that's how it started. And I originally met John through Gene Gotti, his brother, and Angelo Ruggiero, Quack Quack. That's
Oh
how
yeah, quack quack. Yeah.
that's how I originally met John. When I
Wow.
refer to John, I'm referring to the boss, John.
Senior.
John
Yeah,
Senior.
senior. Yeah, exactly. I met Gene when I was in El Reno, Oklahoma. You know how they give you the diesel therapy when you're in prison. So
Oh
I had
yeah,
a
yeah.
yeah, so I had a 2-week stop over there, and then one of the guys says, Gene's working in the laundry room over here. I said, get out of here. And I didn't know him, but I says when he came to give us the clothes, I said, hey Gene, how you doing? He goes, hey, how you doing? He says, are you from New York? I said, yeah. And he gave me a couple extra pair of underwear because you only get one pair. So he slipped a few in for us. That's the kind of guy I guess he was. But
Gene,
I'm sure you knew him better,
oh, Jeannie. Before I got married, Jeannie and Angelo made me my bachelor party.
Wow.
So there's a lot of history there, and Jeannie and I were very, very close until John put an end to that. John was a very possessive kind of guy if you were his friend, and in the life, those people were in the life. I was
Okay.
in the life, but not in the life in the way a captain would be or a skipper would be or that type of a situation.
Would you say you was like still an associate or no?
Well, remember, bosses don't have anybody around them.
That's true.
Because you would be assigned to a captain. I was
That's right.
directly with the boss. I had access to him
Wow.
24/7.
Okay.
I was the only person permitted to go to his house.
Wow.
And I could go to his house whenever I wanted. And so that's how close I was with this man.
Now I was supposed to meet John Gotti when I was at MCC. We were both in the same, doing time.
Right.
And so a couple of the guys came downstairs. I think was it George the Greek or somebody like that? I forget exactly how it was. A couple of the guys, I think Tony Salerno's brother was there too.
Right.
But they said, listen, there's a lot of talk about you. I think he was on 11 or 9.
11 South on 9
11
South.
South. Yeah, and I was on 9. So they said, listen, he says, a lot of people talking about you. John wants to meet you because he don't want nobody to cut his hair. Number one, they heard you can cut hair.
Right.
And then you also, you were like a funny guy. And I was like, I started getting a little nervous because I was like, I don't want to cut his hair. You know what I mean?
I hope you didn't cut his hair.
No. So what happened? Yeah, exactly. So what happened was the chapel got canceled that one Sunday. And so I said, okay, I'll go the next Sunday. But they shipped me back to Otisville at that time. So I missed them.
Oh.
But I was going to get to meet him finally for the first time. You know what I mean? Which I was like a little, I'm not going to lie to you. I was a little,
No, I have to tell you, Joe.
Yeah.
a very respectful man.
Hmm.
He, no pretensions with him. You know, a lot of people, put this jacket on him because they were
Hmm.
so intimidated by him. But he was who he was. He was the real deal. If he
Hmm.
liked you, he liked you. And if he didn't like you, he didn't like you. He wasn't an actor. He wasn't a phony. He wasn't a full of shit guy. And
Yeah.
and he was real. He was just, he was real.
I'm glad you said that, Lewis. You know why? Because there's a lot of people out there in the street, and also now on this, like, channels like this, and they said that John ruined the mob. And I don't really feel that way, and I'm going to tell you why. But I want to know. I want to ask you first. How do you feel about that? Because they said, "Oh, he was in the limelight," all that nonsense. But
Well,
that's to me. But I don't know how you feel about it.
let me tell you about that.
Okay.
That's not true. John was the mob. Through all those years he was out, he was the mafia. Okay.
Okay.
There was no stronger. And when I say ethical, yeah, that the Gambino family is an organized crime family. But I
Yeah.
got to tell you about John Gotti, Sr. When you made
Okay.
a deal with him, you made a deal with him. If he said
Mm.
to you, we're partners in this, that, and the other thing, that was it. If we made $1 and our deal was 50 cents each, that's what he took. He was no
Wow.
Sammy. He was not a scumbag like Sammy. Whatever the deal was, that was the deal. That's the kind of man John was. But to get back to your question,
Hmm.
you take the John Millers of the day, that reporter, all these guys. It was the media. The media sensationalized him. They
Right.
never saw a guy like him. He dressed. He was the man.
Yeah, he was sharp. He was
He
sharp,
was a
bro.
sharp guy.
Yeah.
You could never hear a story about him out womanizing. Yeah, if we would go out, you go to Club A and all those clubs back in the day.
Yeah.
He wasn't a Channel 80 guy. That wasn't his thing. He liked that. He was a Manhattan guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Those people would fall all over him. Family, every crew from every family, when they heard he was at a nightclub or he was in a restaurant, you saw 200 guys coming in from every
Wow.
family.
Wow.
Genovese, Bonanno, Colombo, Gambino. He never sent for these people. They would come in. Hey, boss. Hey, chief. Hey, this. Say that. We would go on vacation in Florida. Sophia Loren, Whitney Houston. Uh,
Wow.
uh, you name the biggest celebrities and you name the biggest families from Boston, from Florida. Well, Gambino's ran Florida. From
Yeah.
Florida. Anyway, Rhode Island. These people, my phone would be ringing off the hook. Yo, where's this? Where's that? And of course, I would never say where he was. But
Yeah. Of course.
everybody knew if they had to reach him, it was either Jackie Knows, D'Amico, or me.
I knew Jackie knows. I was with him in MDC on my last pinch.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Jackie back in the day, great guy.
Uh-huh.
He was a great guy. I have to say, on a personal level, he changed once he started to get elevated.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
but when he was around John, when he was the skipper assigned to John, he was a good guy. And me and him, that was our job. Our job 24/7 was the boss of the Gambino family.
Okay.
And you know something? That's a tough job.
Yeah,
You know
I'm
what it
sure.
is to handle this every day, 24/7.
Oh yeah. That's why people get old fast in that life. I've
But
seen
you know
guys
what,
go from black hair to white hair in 3 years.
Joe? If I had it to do over again, I'm smarter now.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
I would have kept the mutts away from him.
Yeah.
Okay. See, the one mistake is John as the boss, he was accessible unless Jackie Knows or myself buffeted it or stopped it.
Okay.
Otherwise, associates, made guys are supposed to go to their skippers.
That's right.
But John, his whole crew in Ozone Park and all those guys, they were accessible. He was accessible. If we had the money that he used to give to people for lawyers and doctors and whose wife is every day somebody's wife was sick and every day somebody needed money for a lawyer. Give this guy 15,000, give this guy 10,000, help this guy. Here, you remember Herbie Sperling?
Yes, I heard the name. Yes.
Okay. John never had nothing to do with Herbie Sperling,
Okay.
but he liked Herbie because he knew Herbie was a stand-up guy.
Okay.
When Herbie's wife was in trouble, Josephine, Lewis, go see Josephine, give her $5,000 and make sure she has air conditioning in her apartment in New York.
Wow.
So I went to see Josephine. I says, here's from John. And I had the electrician there, and we put air conditioning in all Josephine Sperling's apartment. That's the kind of guy he was.
And something about that reminds me of
Joe. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No. Go ahead, please, Louis.
He helped everybody. We used to have guys coming from other crews, other families, and it got to a point. He says, Louis, I used to say to him, John, do you hate money? I says, do you hate money between what we're giving the lawyers? The lawyers are good gangsters. They take the money good. Cash, gift cards, watches, jewelry, whatever you could give a lawyer, they'll take.
Yep.
And I used to say, John, we can't just keep giving all this money. It's not good.
Yeah.
So if he would say, give this guy $15,000, I would give him $5,000. If he would say, give that lawyer $20,000, I would give him $10,000. And after a while, I would go on the visits. He'd say to me, he says, we got a good thing going here. He says, I say give 20 and you'll give it 10. He says, yeah. I says, yeah, let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
Let me be the bad guy. And you just, and I used to say, I'll talk to the kid. I don't know why he's doing this, but it worked out good. I saved them millions.
Okay. So you put that money aside for him then.
Of course.
Yeah. I got to make sure that everybody knows that you wasn't a thief.
Joe, nothing lasts forever.
No.
They could say whatever I want. Whatever they want to say, they could say. It's all jealousy. And if you all think that for 1 second he didn't have an accounting, and I didn't make sure he had an accounting, I didn't need to take anything. He gave me whatever I wanted.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, my wedding, I'm still counting the gifts. Of course, I'm being facetious.
Yeah.
I didn't have to ask. My house, I built a beautiful home in Woodbury. I was 30 years old. Yeah, my father died. He left me a lot of money, but he built that house for me. I couldn't afford that house.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of things about guys like John, because supposedly he came from nothing. He was.
Joe,
yes.
He came from nothing.
Yep.
His family, they lived poorer than poor. They used to. They didn't even have blankets. They used to have burlap potato sack bags with a leaky roof. And him and Pete used to sleep on the side with Jeannie because the roof used to leak.
Wow.
Poorer than poor.
I think that's the way he was like that, because I think, because I know a couple of guys like that too, but they came from nothing too. And they were very generous as they had gotten things in their lifetime. You know what I mean? I've done the same thing myself. So I know.
You see, but Joe, by all rights,
yeah,
you take Jackie knows a good guy, but he was he was weak. He couldn't protect John. Okay. And I don't mean physically. I'm saying he couldn't protect John the way a proper skipper should have. So it was me and John and Tommy Gambino, and they became very close, John and Tommy.
Wow.
Because of the garment center.
Right.
And there's a story I'll get into about what would have been if the arrest didn't come down the way it did. But I don't want to get into that now because we're not there.
That's fine. Yeah.
Tommy Gambino, they grew to love each other. And we got to remember, Paul Castellano never treated Tommy good. John's the one that treated Tommy like a man and gave Tommy the respect.
Well, something from what I understand, Paul didn't treat anybody good.
It was all about money for Paul Castellano. Yep. Okay? Yep. He treated, listen, Tommy's father was the boss for 25 years. He deserved that respect.
Right.
Okay? Paul didn't treat Tommy right. Mm-hmm. Paul was all about the money. He didn't treat captains right.
That's what I heard. Yeah. I heard that too.
If you made a score and it was $100,000, you gave Paul $80,000.
Wow.
John wasn't like that. John was not like that. Everybody lived with John. Am I partial to John? Yeah, but I was there. Mm-hmm. Everybody lived. John Gotti was not greedy. He was giving it away to a fault. Fault.
They said he used to like to gamble.
The one issue we had was his gambling. Right. Horses, dogs, cats, basketball games.
They said he'd bet on anything. He didn't care.
He would bet on anything. Yeah. And he had a good friend, this guy, Carlo Lizza, who owned Lizzer Industries. They used to pave all the roads on Long Island, New York City. You might have heard of Lizzer Industries.
I've heard
And
of it.
and Carlo,
I think I heard of it. Yeah.
very rich man, multimillionaire, and he had a brother, Ali
Okay.
Lizzer, and Ali and John were very close. And Ali was another guy that was allowed to go to the house.
Wow.
It was but Ali's entree was Ali had horses, and John loved the horses. So Ali would go to the house and, oh, boss, this is going to win, and that's going to win, and that's going to win, and this is going to win. And obviously those horses are still running.
Yeah.
And finally I said to Ali, do me a favor. Why don't you stop and get bagels instead of going to the house?
Yeah.
Every time you go to the house, you cost me $100,000 or $200,000.
Yeah.
But that was John's thing. So, again, we used to tone it down. If he said, I want to bet 10,000 here, so the 10,000 became 2,000. And when they would win, of course, he would go crazy. You would say, what'd you do? John, you won one race in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm still saving you money.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah, I used to go to the Cross Bay Diner. Right across the street up the block was the bagel place. It was out of this world.
Louis Didone owned that bagel place for the Lucchese's.
Okay, that's the place.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
I didn't know he owned the place. Okay.
And by the way, Louis was probably one of the only good Lucchese's that I could talk about.
Oh, okay.
Louis Didone. He was a good Lucchese, unlike the others.
Like I said, I wanted to get a little bit because I didn't like a lot of people. It's nice that it's easy to talk about somebody after they die, obviously, and that kind of thing. And I don't really respect that either.
You'll hear 100 guys could talk about you or talk about me.
Right.
Nobody knew me. The only thing with me, they were jealous.
Yeah. Well, because you were close. Yeah.
They couldn't say nothing about me. I didn't. If I ever the only people I would interact with was for business. I was not involved in organized crime, as you call it, organized crime. But if there was a business deal, Joe, I made sure that John Gotti got his end.
So that was pretty much your function with John, that you took care of the businesses, certain businesses and stuff to help them out.
Certain businesses, like and I would learn about certain skippers doing whatever. Okay. And you got to remember, the Gambino family is a huge operation.
Oh, sure.
And you got unions, you got associations, you got trucking, you got this, you got construction, everything you could think of. There was and you got to remember, Paul was partners with Frank Perdue. Okay.
Yeah, I heard that when I was in the joint. Yeah, I heard that in the joint.
I mean, we weren't partners with Frank Perdue.
Right.
Paul owned Perdue. He owned Bobby Rubino's Ribs. You name it. Wow. This guy owned it. And if he didn't own it, you were getting extorted.
Yeah, he was tough.
John didn't operate that way. Legitimate business. He'd be the first to admit, I'm not a legitimate business guy. And that's where me and a few other guys would come in and we would do what we had to do. But
I'm sorry, Lewis. I don't think it was a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake that they got rid of Paul, to be honest with you. I really don't. And from the word I heard in the street was like, good riddance, like forget about him. You know what I mean?
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. And you know what? Let me tell you about John.
Yeah.
His son, Phil Castellano, okay? John didn't take nothing off them. He left them with the concrete company. He left them with Purdue Chicken.
Really?
And in fact, that's right. You know a boss, let's say it's true that John whacked Paul. I don't know if it's true or not, but let's say it is true.
Okay.
Do you know a boss that wouldn't take anything off their family?
It's no. They usually take everything. Yeah.
That's right. Now, you're in the life as a wise guy. Mm-hmm. Okay. I was in the life with a boss on a different level.
Right.
He assigned Tommy Gambino to service the Castellano family.
Wow.
Okay. He didn't assign him some prick. He didn't assign him some bad captain. He said to Tommy, take care of the Castellano family. He took nothing off them. I'm not saying that they didn't have to kick up.
Oh yeah, but that's okay. But that's normal though.
That's right. But
yeah, that's normal.
Same with Joe Gallo's son.
Right.
Joe Gallo Jr., who I hated him and he hated me. He was in a garment center.
I didn't know him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I told Joe Gallo, I said, your ride's over. You're done up here. Whatever you're getting, the boss is letting you have.
So they're doing you a favor. They're helping you
They're
out.
doing
Yeah,
you a
just
favor. So
yeah.
me and Gallo didn't get along because I was always watching him,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew I was watching him. So
Right.
and I told but
You didn't
remember,
like it.
Tommy was assigned. Tommy was very close to Joe and Gallo.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
So
didn't know that.
oh yeah, they were BFFs.
Okay.
And now me and John had an issue over this. Why would you assign Tommy Gambino to take care of Joe Gallo's kid? There's a partiality there.
Mm-hmm.
But Tommy and I says to Tommy, either we do this nice or, and me and Tommy were close, and Tommy did it nice. Listen,
Wow.
he favored Joe Gallo. Listen, did he love me, Tommy Gambino? No, but he had no fucking choice.
Yeah.
What was
But
his
they said,
choice?
yeah, exactly. But wait, they said Tommy was not a bad guy in real life, though.
Well, he wasn't a bad guy, but
Right.
John let him live. John let him
Yeah.
thrive.
Yeah.
John didn't take. John said one thing: whatever Lewis wants, you give Lewis, and don't make him ask you twice, Tommy. I don't want to hear him say any beefs about you.
Mm-hmm.
And we got along. I was young. If I
Yeah,
knew
yeah,
if I knew then what I knew now, I don't think Tommy and I would have been good friends.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's the way it
You,
was.
you live and learn. Exactly.
John
So
had an expression, Joe. Don't reach into anybody's pocket. There's enough for everybody. You know a boss that thinks that way? In any family, you know a boss that thinks that way. He used to tell me, Lewis, don't reach into anybody. There's enough here. Whatever you want, go take. But let everybody live.
the
Tell
only
me if
one,
you know a boss like that.
the only one story, Lewis, and you're right though, because I don't know many. There's only one guy that I remember. My father, I told the story a couple of times. Uh, is when my father made a score, he brought it to the boss, who was Barney, because he's in the Genovese family. And Barney had said to him, "You did this on your own." And my father said, "Yes." He said, "Then that's all yours." He didn't take a dime. Now, I believe that's a true story because that went around
That's a
the.
John Gotti. That's a
Yes,
John Gotti.
yes. So I have to
It's
say
a John
that.
Gotti Senior, not Junior. Junior would take the gold out of your teeth, but Senior,
Now I didn't know. I only met John Jr. in MDC. I seen him once in. I don't know if you remember Channel 80 back in Long Island in the days.
of course. Philly Basile
Okay.
and I were the closest friends. Philly was around Paul Vario, and
Yeah. Okay.
John was always friendly with Paul Vario.
Ah.
See, and when Philly was sick, Philly died of cancer. Phil made me his executor,
Okay.
and I had to clean up. Phil Basile died broke, believe it or not.
Really?
Rich in property,
Right.
no cash. When
Wow.
Paul Vario was out of the picture, the
Mhm.
Lucchese family extorted and abused Phil Basile like you never saw before.
I never knew this.
Joe
I never
Joe
knew that.
Caridi, Joe C, Johnny Sideburns, Danny Cateo, all
Mhm.
those guys. But you see, John was still the boss then, even though he was locked up.
Okay.
And there was nothing they could do because Philly Basile owed me 7 figures.
Wow.
So they weren't stepping on John Gotti at this point. And
Mhm.
thank God, I was able to liquidate, take care of Philly's family, give them what they had to get, and get my money back.
Wow.
Because those Lucchese's, they wrecked Philly Basile, wrecked them. And remember, Philly Basile was his relationship with Paul Vario, they were best friends.
I didn't know
That
that
was,
either.
they were like, that was a father-son relationship. And remember, he gave Henry Hill the job at the request of Paul Vario.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so
Oh,
so you go, yeah, because you're going way back. I mean,
I'm
I
going
didn't know
back
none
into
of
the
this.
70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And you got to understand, Philly wasn't a light guy because
Mhm.
he wasn't that kind of guy. If he saw you at the bar, he would say, "Hey, Joe, you want a drink?" He wasn't like that. He didn't, not only with you, but even with the Lucchese's.
Wow.
See, Philly made a lot of money and he forgot where he came from. He forgot you can't operate the way he was
That,
operating without Paul Vario.
yeah, that happens a lot to these guys though too. They forget, and then
They
yeah,
forget.
and that's why
And
I have.
I used to
That's why I have
tell
respect
Phil,
for John. I did that because, like you said, he came from nothing and he still gave away. You see, I
right.
like that.
Phil wasn't a generous guy. He wouldn't buy you a drink, and I used to say, Phil, what's it cost you to buy somebody? Back then, Absolute was big. What's it cost you to buy Absolute? What's it cost you to buy a Chivas Regal?
Yeah, right.
And, and Philly wasn't like that, because he had Vario there and everything was great until he didn't have Vario anymore. Then those Lucchese's, they raped him.
Wow.
They abused him. Used to go to the club and slap his managers.
Holy shit.
See, and when that happens, you have no more respect.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But I stopped a lot of it. When I say I mean John.
Yeah, I know.
And John didn't have no love for Phil, but John stepped up because he had to step up because of me.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you see, you knew a lot of guys. You knew a lot of. Did you know Mikey Scars?
I did.
Okay.
Mikey Scars.
Before you get into that, I saw John Jr. I was talking about Channel 80. So John Jr. He was with a bunch of dudes, but then there was a big fight that broke out. He got into a big fight that night. And I remember that. And I was telling him that in MDC and everything. He goes, I got arrested that night or whatever. I said, get out of here. I said, so you remember it? He goes,
well,
yeah.
He was there with that John Alite.
Oh, Johnny L.A. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Johnny Alite was there, and they had big beef there. And of course, I got the phone call the next day, and his father was livid. Because you see, John Jr. would do anything to get his father's attention, but that's not getting his attention. That's only embarrassing yourself and embarrassing your father. So John calls me up. He says, "You heard?" I says, "Yeah, I heard what happened." He says, "Alite lost something there." I said, "Okay." He says, "Maybe you could get that Philly Basile. Your friend there, Philly Basile. Maybe you could get him. Have the cleaning crew." Alite claims he lost. I said, all right, let me see what I could do. I said, John, we had 3,000 people here tonight. Do what you could do. And
what did he lose?
So he lost a gold bracelet.
Okay.
So unlikely to find it. It so happened. I said, Phil, you go down there because I want to be able to tell John that you personally went down there.
Okay.
Because, he went down there with the cleaning crew and it so happens we did find the bracelet.
Wow.
I went to the house. I gave it to John. He says, "Go give it to that crybaby, my son and Alite. They were crying over the bracelet." And of course, John got his hole opened up for having the beef down there at the club because you don't go to somebody's club who's around the Vario, and especially when you know what's going on with me.
Yeah, you conduct yourself as a gentleman. Yeah.
Correct. And John Sr. was not too happy with that.
Wow. So you weren't that close with Junior or the rest of the kids that much, or no?
Well, you know what? I was close. There was jealousy on the part of Junior's part. Listen, I made him his wedding. I said to John, you're not going to be here forever. I made the wedding. Me and Tommy Gambino organized the wedding. We made the wedding in the Helmsley Palace with Mrs. Helmsley, who loved John.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
She put the Italian flag outside the hotel. I says, Mrs. H, are you crazy? They put her in the grand jury. The Eastern District threw in the grand jury.
Well, see how that's how the government is. And I want to get into the thing with the government too, but I was asking you about Mikey Scars. Did you know him too?
I did know Mikey.
Okay.
I did. And, and John really cared for Mikey Scars. But you see,
really?
In defense of Mikey Scars, Pete Gotti, my uncle, Uncle Pete. I call him my uncle. That's an uncle. You need cancer before that's your uncle. And Uncle Pete, he let Mikey Scars lay in the MCC without a lawyer.
Really? Why would he do that? I heard Mikey Scars was a good earner out there.
That's right. And Uncle Pete put him on the shelf. I says to Uncle Pete, why are you doing that to this guy? And I got a lawyer to go in and see Mikey Scars, and Pete went crazy. I said, Pete, this is beyond you. This is above your pay grade. Mikey Scars deserves a lawyer. He didn't do nothing to you. What are you mad about? Because he was close to Junior or because he was close to your brother? It was too late. The FBI knew everything already. And he put him on the shelf. He took his money. When a guy's in jail and you put him on the shelf and you take his money away, and that's what they did to Mikey Scars. And let me tell you something. Pete Gotti only became an acting boss because there was nobody else.
Yeah, that's usually,
That was just out of necessity, out of luxury. His John used to say, he worked for sanitation. God bless him. He used to say, How did this happen? How do I have an imbecile as an acting boss?
But you see, I never understand these things, Louis. Obviously I've been around enough to see. And why do these guys do this to people that are loyal to them? I don't understand this. I don't understand why you cut these people out. You take
Joe,
things from them, as we say. I don't
Joe,
understand it.
listen, Junior hated Pete. Junior hated Richie. Richie was another garbage pail. His brother Richie, and he used to tell him that. He used to call him Pee Pee Brain. That's what Richie's nickname was.
Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't
his
know
brother
that.
used to call him Pee Pee Brain. Richie and Pete were so jealous of their brother, and anybody was around their brother. You see, with me, they had no choice because I had access. I was getting the phone calls. I used to get the mail, so
Oh yeah.
they had to be nice to me
Hmm. They
until
didn't
they
want
didn't
it, but they had it. Yeah.
until they didn't have to be nice anymore.
Right.
You get my point?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But Richie, the lowest form of life you could meet, and Uncle Pete, not a bad guy, just an imbecile.
Yeah, there was a price that he put on a guy. This is another story for another time too, and I'm also going to talk about this later on but there was a guy, Willie Marshall, out there, and there was $1 million price tag on his head. Supposedly Pete Gotti put it on his head, and
I don't
I don't know
believe
if
it.
that's true or not. Yeah,
I don't
and that's
believe
why
it.
I say I don't really know, and then that's why you hear stories. I
It's like
actually knew
it's
where
like when they say Pete sent two guys to kill Gravano.
I heard that too. Yeah. I heard that too.
Pete,
I don't know
number
if
one,
that's true either.
Pete didn't have the ability. Pete didn't have the brains. Now, if you got to understand, John Gotti wouldn't put $1 million on nobody. You don't.
Mhm.
When you're a boss, you don't put $1 million on nobody.
No, I
Come on.
never heard of that before.
If you want somebody gone, they're gone.
Yeah, right. You just people take care of business. You know,
Of course.
now John, I knew he definitely was. Michael Francis talks about him. He doesn't talk bad about John either, which that I've heard
No.
anyway. He told a story about a thing that they had going on with some feast thing or whatever, and
Well,
and
John liked his father.
yeah. Well,
John
from
liked
what I
Sonny.
understand,
Everybody liked Sonny.
I heard everybody likes Sonny. I
He
mean,
was he was
everybody
the real
respected him.
deal.
Yeah, everybody respected him.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
there was because they talk about the bug that they had in the room over there. And I'm like, well, listen, maybe you
You want to
shouldn't
talk
talk
about
about
the
it no
bug?
more.
Let's talk about
Yeah.
the bug, Joe.
Yeah, let's talk
We're
about that
talking
bug.
about the bug upstairs in the Ravenite.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Now let me ask you a question. Being a wise guy you were, being around people, how did anyone know where he was going? How did anyone know he was going to the Sorelli apartment? You know who
Somebody
knew?
had to tell somebody.
Well, let me ask you. It was Frankie Lowe who didn't say nothing because
Right.
Frankie Lowe was the real deal. That was a
Yeah, he
man's
was a good,
man
yeah.
too. Good
Yep.
guy. It was Sammy the Bull
Mhm.
Gravano,
Mhm.
and it was John Gotti, and maybe Joe Watts, maybe Junior, and maybe myself. So who would you guess how to alert them how to put that bug upstairs? Let me see
Yeah.
how smart you are, Joe Barone.
Yeah. Wait. Joe Barone is going to show you how smart he is. He doesn't want to say.
Well, I'm going to tell you who.
Okay.
It had to be Gravano
Mhm.
because nobody knew when he was going up there. No one knew what time he was going up there. It wasn't Norman DuPont,
Mhm.
okay?
Mhm.
It wasn't Junior. It wasn't me. Because remember, I wasn't at that club a lot. So, I mean, I would get mad at John and I would tell John, don't go up there anymore. Stop going
Mhm.
up there. Stop going up there. But Sammy would always set the appointments up there.
Ah. Okay. Well, like I
Again,
say, they said there was a back door, or maybe somebody else said something or
no, there was a
whatever.
back door. Okay. But remember, in the Ravenite, there was the main room when you walked in, and then there was
Right.
the back room where the skippers would meet with the boss.
Right.
It
Okay.
certainly wasn't Jimmy Brown. It certainly wasn't Tommy Gambino. It was Sammy, because when those conversations took place, Sammy was aware of it.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
believe it was Sammy.
And
Could it have been?
you don't think it was
Well,
Willie Boy Johnson either?
no, Willie Boy was dead by then.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe it was Willie
I thought he
Boy.
was okay. I didn't know if he
I,
was
I
dead or not.
believe he was dead by then because that
Okay.
case was already decided in the Eastern
Okay.
District with that Diane Giacalone. So I would tend to venture it either, if you believe what you hear about Joe Watts, which I find it hard to believe, but
I almost had a fight with Joe Watts when I was in MCC.
you don't want
after
to
I
have a fight with
cooperated.
Joe Watts. Yeah.
No, he had two guys with him, and I was on the phone talking to my then fiance at that time, and my picture was in the paper for cooperating, and he was there, and he goes, "Is that the kid?" And I said, "Oh shit,
Yeah.
looks like it's on." And I said, "Hey
Yeah.
Joe, how you doing?"
Yeah.
But they didn't jump on me. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know, if Joe really would ever, but he did sometime. But again, I don't know, so I don't want to say. But
Yeah,
I
I
would.
was ready.
It had to be either Gravano or it had to be Joe Watts. And then eventually he stopped going up there, but it was too late. So then he would go in the hallway, and they bugged the hallway.
Yeah.
See, it was too late by then, because you got to understand what caused John to go up there in that one conversation with Frankie Lowe was Sammy. You got to understand, John was the type of guy, if he wanted to send you a message, he would talk about the other guy. He would say, hey, Lewis, that this guy and that guy, I don't like the way he did it. I don't like people reaching in other pockets. I knew what he meant. So when he was talking to Frankie Lowe, when he was talking about that conversation, he was talking to Frankie, but he was talking about Sammy. This guy, I made a mistake with this guy. This guy's a bad guy. Frankie, who's wrong? What are we doing here? You're supposed, he was reprimanding Frankie and Sammy. See, Frankie was a good guy, but he wasn't for that position.
Okay.
He was a good guy. He was an earner, but he wasn't for that position.
He lived in Pelham Manor, where I lived. Yeah.
Exactly. You needed somebody strong that could control that Gravano. Because Gravano was out of control.
Well, let me ask you a question that you mentioned all of this. What was since you were that close to John, I mean, I'm sure he probably had some things on his mind. What do you think one of his biggest regrets was?
John Gotti Sr.'s biggest regret was Sammy Gravano. That was the biggest mistake he made.
Wow.
The biggest mistake. He knew it. Junior knew it. I knew it. Tommy Gambino knew it. And the skippers like Joe Butch from Taormino's.
Joe Butch, I heard Joe Butch.
The best guy.
I heard he was a good guy too.
Good guy. And he gave me the best advice. He used to give me he was like my guy I would go to when I was losing my mind.
What was one of the things he might have said to you, if you can say it? I don't know, it's up to you.
I could say it.
Okay.
He would say, Lewis, get it done now. He's not going to be here forever. And don't be intimidated by these captains. And you come to me. I'll tell you how to do it. See, the captains, you got to understand, these guys, they didn't want me going back to John putting them beefs in. That's what I had in my favor, and the fact that he issued direct orders to them regarding me. I could go to a skipper. No, when associates can't go to skippers, I could go to a captain alone. I didn't need John's permission. I had his permission 24/7. Never abused it. Always respectful. There were times when I had to step it up, but I would go to Joe Butch or I would go to Tommy. See, I would make Tommy. Tommy was the guy because Tommy needed me and I needed him.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
going to tell you this one thing, Lewis. I was fortunate. I was able to go to my skipper. My skipper was Dominick Cicale, so I was able to actually call him. I was.
But see, he was a good guy.
Yes.
You see, Cicale was a good guy. You have skippers that weren't good guys.
Oh, I know. I was so fortunate to have him, and everybody in his crew was fortunate to have him. That's a good guy.
You look at me. Yep. I'm half Italian, half Jewish. My grandfather was around the Colombos, which John didn't know. And he laughed. He said, "Why don't you tell me about your grandfather?"
Yeah.
And you think Jimmy Brown? I know Jimmy Brown, that Jew Cox. You think I know? And John used to say, he's no fan of yours. I was no kid. But see, John would do that in front of them, and I would, why are you doing that? And he would laugh. But see that he wanted them to know that he knew. Don't mess with this kid.
John sounds like he was a down to earth type of guy, like more like realist and more in fantasy land.
Restaurants, never abused any. Wherever he went, you knew who he was, but he was just that way. Listen, you didn't mess with him.
Yeah.
If he had something to say, he said it. If he was pissed, there had to be a reason. He was not a bully. See,
Right. Okay.
John Senior was not a bully.
Wow.
No.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, he did have a presence, though. The way he carried himself, the way he walked. Even the movie stars went to go his trial and everything too.
Listen, I'll never forget it. He was at Jilly Rizzo's place with
Hmm.
Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra made like he didn't see him. Well, Joe Watts took care of that pretty quick.
Wow.
He picked up Frank Sinatra by the neck. You know, Frank Sinatra was short. And
Yeah.
you saw
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra's feet dangling on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Frank Sinatra, they said he had the connections with Carlo Gambino and stuff like that.
Yeah. And remember, John didn't like Sinatra's music. You know, he liked
Oh, he
Jimmy
did?
Roselli. Nah. He
I didn't
liked
know
Jimmy
that.
Roselli. We had
Roselli,
Jimmy
yeah.
Roselli at the wedding.
Oh, you did? Okay, yeah. Jimmy Roselli.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew
You
him
see,
too. Yeah.
and at the wedding, you got to understand, all through these years, Gravano hated me. I was
Oh, he
making
did?
John. Yeah, I was making John too smart. I was making John too alert of what's going on in the family. Me and
Oh, okay.
Tommy. He went to John and says, "Listen, I think we got to kill Lewis and kill Tommy." Yeah,
Really?
I was on a visit in the MCC. I'll never forget it. And John says to me, this is when it was getting bad between them. John says to me, "You know that mutt over there, that punk?" And I look. He was pointing to Sammy. He wants to kill you and Tommy Gambino. Don't worry about it, though. He says, "I told them they got to go and buy a new Lincoln and make sure they put you in a new car at Kennedy Airport."
Oh, jeez.
So and Gravano knew what he was saying. See, Gravano didn't like it because I go on the visits at the Eastern District and I bring John the food, fresh socks, fresh clothes. None of Gravano's guys were doing anything for him. Louis wasn't doing anything for him, and I knew how to maneuver. So I was getting into the holding pens.
Nice.
With the food, with the breakfast.
Yeah.
Listen, John was treated the way he should have been treated. And I didn't skip a
because the
beat.
prisons don't do anything for you.
I didn't skip a beat. We had everybody on the payroll at the MCC, all those old timers at the Eastern District. John was treated the way he should. And he used to love it. As soon as he saw me, his face lit up, because he knew,
Yeah.
He knew if anybody could do it, that kid could do it.
You want to know something? In one way, I'm kind of glad. That he died, so this way he wouldn't spend the rest of his life like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he died a terrible death, Joe.
I'm so sad that he got like that. It's sad. You know what I mean?
He had head, neck, and throat cancer. And
I know they told pictures of him.
And when he was in Marion was the bad place. Florence didn't exist then. ADX Florence, that Sammy brags about. So Marion was there.
Right.
They were giving him Tylenol.
That's it?
And they didn't call a doctor in at the beginning. They called in the undertaker, who happened to be the undertaker and the guy that used to give the medicine out at Marion.
Yeah, he needed morphine. He needed
chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So they were giving him Tylenol.
What a tough bastard.
You got to understand this. In the history of the Bureau of Prisons, which is a corrupt agency on all levels from the top down, a dirty agency.
I agree.
We had a warden there by the name of Bill Hedrick. We had a concierge warden, Joe. He was John Gotti's warden from the time John Gotti which was a direct commit to Marion till the day John died in Springfield, Missouri. Have you ever heard of that before?
Never.
So I used to call Hedrick because I had people I had Senator Clinton was helping me, Congressman Rangel. I had everybody working. Everybody. I hired Charles Ogletree, the professor over at Harvard, who was helping.
You really cared about John?
That Attorney General you got to forgive me. I get these.
No, under Clinton.
Under Clinton.
Janice.
Not Reno, the black guy there.
I know who you talk about there too. Hold on, it'll come to me too. Wait, it's like one of those senior moments.
Right, me too. He was the Attorney General.
Okay.
And Ogletree.
Yeah,
Eric Holder.
Every
Eric
hole.
Holder.
That's it. Yeah, that's
Right.
it.
And
I can't stand
Ogletree
him.
was very close. It was that whole black mafia thing going on at a Harvard University. And Ogletree loved John. And Ogletree used to
Oh,
go, I
really?
used to send Ogletree to go visit John but on a private jet in
Oh,
Marion.
wow.
And he would
Okay.
stay there for hours with him. And
Wow.
Ogletree would call up the BOP, the director. I saw him, Kathleen Hawke Sawyer. He'd get her on the phone. You make sure this man gets this. You make sure. And
Wow.
she would do a little bit more. And then he would call up Eric Holder. Well, he was the AG. So we were doing everything, but it was nothing. It was not. In
Right.
fact, Ogletree got so frustrated. He used to give me Eric Holder's private phone number in Justice. And I would call him up, Mr. Attorney General, and we would do more things. And then finally, when Clinton was getting out, we were on a first name basis, Holder. He'd say, Lewis, I'm doing everything I can. This is a very political thing. By this time,
Right.
he was shipped out into Springfield. And we did, it was too late. They cut
Yeah.
half his tongue out. He was ridden
Terrible.
with the cancer. But
Terrible.
what I did do, I hired a guy by the name, Joe, of D. Wampler. And your viewers could look him up.
Yeah, because
D.
I never heard.
Wampler, he was the premier attorney in Springfield, Missouri. Now, Springfield, Missouri didn't have a federal judge that sat. He had a magistrate.
Okay.
So I gave D. Wampler quite a sum of money. Legitimate check. I says, D, I want you to go before this magistrate and get John on a writ, get him into a private hospital in Springfield, Missouri. He says, Lewis, he says, but you know what? I'm going to tell you something, Lewis, that you don't know. This magistrate and I were roommates in college.
Wow.
He says, I can't promise. I says, listen to me. I don't want no promises. I don't want no nonsense because you're going to wind up disbarred or in jail, and so will I. I want you to draw up the best legal papers you can and show what's going on.
Okay.
And he did. And this magistrate had the balls to sign a writ to have John Gotti immediately removed from Springfield and put into private hospital, the best private hospital in Springfield. Me, who they're all jealous of, and and his son talks bad about me, whatever, who didn't do a thing to lift a finger for his father, except go on a visit and tell his father, Dad, I need closure. Okay, I need closure. Give back the money if you want closure. How do you dare go see your father and tell him that? But okay, that's another story.
We'll get into that another time.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
That phony bullshit he pulled. But in any event, this judge had the decency and the temerity and the courage to take John out of custody and put him in there in a private hospital for 7 days. Showers, the best doctor treatment, heart doctor, cancer doctor, this, that, and the
medication
other
to make him feel no
medication.
Pain.
And let me tell you, Joe Barone, he had the best 7 days of his life.
Good.
Because of Louis Kasman. And I went up there and I tried to get him to see John because I figured now he's in a private hospital. I thought I was so smart. Little did I know, I walk into the hospital and I get onto the floor. And the floor's like they have an open area, no rooms. Everybody's open with curtains. And I get up there and he sees me, John, and his face lit up like $1 million. And all of a sudden, about a handful of these ninja warriors in black, dressed in black, jump on me and Uncle Pete, throw us to the ground. I mean, I was banged up. Pete was banged up. His bad eye almost came out of his head.
Wow.
And they lock us in a closet. Imagine being locked with Uncle Pete in a closet for 2 hours. Nothing worse than that. And then they open the door. I said, what's going on here? You don't belong. Why do I don't belong here? I'm not on. This is a private hospital. This is not your hospital anymore. Well, you're protecting. I said, you're protecting him? Who are you protecting him from?
Yeah,
from
right.
me? You're protecting him from you because you want him to die.
Yep.
So we waved. I had a few tears. And they said, well, lock us up. Because then I want to have a press conference after you lock us up.
Yeah, there you go.
They escorted us out, and the media. I had the media waiting out there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I said what I had to say, but that was the last time I saw the boss.
But his
And
family must have appreciated the fact that you did this.
they were jealous. Junior didn't appreciate nothing. His daughters, Vicky, Peter. He has a son, Peter. Me and him were best friends for I don't know how many years. I love till this day. I love him. Anything I could do for him, I would do for him. He was the most devoted son, and he adored his father. He didn't want nothing from his father, but he
Wow.
lived in Springfield for over 8 months, going on a visit every other day to see his father and love his father. Peter
Wow.
Gunn. He did
Wow.
that. He lived in the best hotel I could find him there. And I used to go down every other weekend to be with Peter. He used to live with a fish tank in the room.
Wow.
That's how he lived. For 8 months, Joe, going to
Wow.
see his father till the day his father died. And I'll never forget, he calls me up. I was not going down that weekend. He says, Louis, you better come down. He says, it doesn't look too good for him. So I flew down private. Mrs. Helmsley gave me her jet. I flew down into Springfield. Peter met me at the airport. I flew down with Quack Quack's son, Johnny Boy Ruggiero, who died of cancer too. Me and Johnny, John loved Johnny Boy Ruggiero.
Wow.
And he loved Quack Quack too, even though he denies it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
They had a bond that no, and you got to remember it was Quack Quack and Jeannie that were paying his gambling debts back in those days.
Yeah.
You know, Jeannie and Angelo used to shake. What do we owe this weekend? But I'll tell you one thing.
It's funny.
That Johnny Boy, that Ruggiero family, they were the most loyal to the Gottis, to John. They were the real deal. They were good. They were good people.
I love these stories, Louis.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm kind of glad that you got on now, because I look, I'm not doing anything for Senior or the family or anything like that. I don't really know them. Like I said, how much I do know them, but I'm kind of glad that there's somebody like yourself who was close to him who could say your side of the story and to show how John really was in real life. Besides all the stuff that he ruined the mob and took down this and that, I get a little tired of hearing that too. Like
he was the mob. He was the mob. Okay, he didn't ruin nothing. He was the man.
Yeah, and like I said, I get to because a lot of people talk about other people that once they they talk about somebody bad when they go to prison or he was no good anyways and all of this nonsense. I'm tired of people saying stuff without really hearing two sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There was only one John Gotti.
Oh, and I could believe that. Yeah, I definitely believe that.
He helped. He did whatever he could do. Listen, in the life, if you did what you weren't supposed to do, you paid the penalty.
That's the way it goes. Yeah.
Right.
That's right. That's the way it goes.
Being honorable, helping his men, helping people, you couldn't find a better guy than him. And I don't care. You want to go ask Tommy Sneakers. You go ask. Well, JoJo's dead now. You go ask anybody. If they want to tell the truth, there was no John Gotti like that John Gotti.
Well, now I'm going to do this because we're going to cut it short here. But Louis, I love this conversation. I know there's a lot more you got to tell. There's a lot more that my viewers would want to know. And especially me too, because I didn't know a lot of this stuff either. Would you come back on another show with us and join the Goodfellow Podcast? Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Louis. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, with that, then, listen, you take care. We'll see you again soon. And everybody out there, hope you enjoyed this show. And there should be some more to come with Louis Kasman and myself from the Goodfellow Podcast. You guys take care.
Thanks. Take care, Joe. Look forward to it.